So we have a few questions that I want to start with, and maybe then we're going to invite Eli and Alex to talk together about the same thing. And I wanted to say the following. So in your book, you speak about cheating to an extent, and you look at relationships through the lens of cheating, and you give a few numbers there. And one of the numbers that you start with is, depends on how you define cheating. It's either 29% of relationships to even, at some point, 99% if you count all kinds of things that are on the kind of gray area. So it seems like cheating has been here forever, at least since marriage existed. What has changed?
So it's first of all, there is no universally agreed upon definition of what constitutes infidelity. And on top of it, the definition keeps on expanding. It's no longer just you may be pregnant and there will be a child whose hair color is different from yours. It could be a chat room. It could be a massage with happy ending. It can be watching porn. It can be staying secretly active on your dating apps after you already are supposedly in a committed relationship. It really is expanding. And through the digital, we also have the ability to have multiple sexual experiences that are not physical. So it's never been easier to cheat, and it's never been more difficult to keep a secret. That said, the numbers range between 28 and 70. A little bit less for women and men, but they're fairly equalizing at this moment, depending on how you define it. What has fundamentally changed is, yes, infidelity has existed since marriage was invented, and so too the taboo against it. And yet, can I ask you, how many of you would say that you have you been affected by the experience of infidelity in your lives? Because you're the child of a parent, because you're the friend of someone, because you're the person in the triangle. How many of you would say you've been affected by the experience of infidelity in your life? Okay. And that changes the whole story for me, is that for most of history, first of all, infidelity was never a gender equal proposition. It basically, women were put under check, and men practically have had a license to cheat, with all kinds of theories that came to explain why they are natural roamers. So the male privilege has existed, the double standard has been in place, and infidelity had very little to do with love. It was primarily because marriage was more of an economic institution, the way that we saw in Eli's presentation. Infidelity was an economic threat. And it was about, whose children are mine and who gets the cows when I die. Or the goats, or the herds, or the camels, depending on the culture. But it always was the same. Infidelity today shatters the grand ambition of love. That is a very new narrative. The one and only, that person, the whole story that you saw, where Eli ended, is where my book begins, in a way, right? It's like, here it is. I thought I was that person, authentically chosen, at my essence. And when you cheat on me, which we need to unpack that word as well. But basically, first of all, I'm not so special. I'm not unique. I'm not indispensable. I'm not the only one. And I have a crisis of identity because I thought you are my best friend. My partner today is my best friend. So I no longer know who I am. I can't trust my life. And that breach of trust becomes not just that I can't trust you, but I no longer can trust my own perception. So one of the big changes about infidelity is it has always been painful. Today it has become traumatic. It has never been a leading cause for divorce. Today it is. Now that we can leave, choosing to stay when we can go has become the new shame. So I'm betrayed by you and I can't talk to you. So I'm stuck in the middle. And I end up protecting the very person that lied to me and hurt me because my friends probably will say, leave. The option of leaving has become the favorite option. Many, many changes like that about modern infidelity. To understand modern infidelity, you have to understand modern marriage.
So you spoke about one narrative, and I want to raise one more narrative. There's this narrative that's prevalent that happy couples don't cheat. Is that true?
So that's probably one of the most important findings in the state of affairs, is that, again, if you go back to the narrative of the romantic love, I have found somebody who is everything for me. If I have found everything, then there should be no reason to go elsewhere. Hence, if I have gone elsewhere, there must be something missing. And either there's something missing in my relationship, or there's something missing in me or in you. But that symptom model, that deficiency model, is the dominant view that affairs therefore don't happen in satisfying relationships, and they do, en masse. They do in open relationships, they do in good marriages, they do in poor marriages, they just happen. And so then became the question, what does it mean to say that affairs also happen in satisfying relationships? Is that it often is not about the relationship. It actually, many times when if I'm in a good connection with you, and I still come in, like many of my patients, I love my partner, I'm having an affair. Like, you would not imagine these two lines together. I don't want to change my life, I don't want to leave. This is about something else. Is that a happy person who cheats, if you want to caricature it like that, is not so much a person who wants to leave you, it's the person who wants to leave who they have themselves become. It's not so much a person who's looking for another partner, but they're looking for another version of themselves. And so at the heart of affairs is betrayal and duplicity and lying, but at the heart of affairs is also longing and loss and self-discovery or self-seeking. And these two stories live side by side. What's for one person sometimes transformative is for the other person totally agonizing.
There's another thing that you say in your book that's very interesting. You give the statistics that women's cheating increased by 40%. Mm-hmm. Why?
Oh, that's quite simple. First of all, the democratization of contraception. I mean, this is the first time that we are separating sex from reproduction in this way. Today, we are also separating reproduction from sex. So the first thing is the freedom to be able to not experience the fundamental threat of pregnancy and mortality. The second one is, in some quarters of the world, growing economic independence of women. Saudi Arabia, I kept saying for many years, people would ask me, just give the woman a car. Then we will know what she really wants. We have no idea she's been locked up. You know, mobility, economic independence, no-fault divorce, and the fact that the consequences, which used to be so dire, there are still 9 countries in the world where women can be killed just for straying. So the fact that she doesn't have to fear pregnancy, destitution, ostracism, the scarlet letter, and the loss of her children allows her, for the first time, to take certain risks because the consequences are less terrifying than they used to be. But then the question comes, you know, the traditional model is that there's a very stereotypic way of thinking about men cheat because they are bored and they need novelty and they need variety and all of that. And women cheat because they're lonely and hungry for intimacy. You know, every gender, every person in a culture knows what is the sanctioned language through which to ask for the things they want. And so men know that through sex they can ask for a lot of things that are not sex, but they are through the gateway of sex, the same way that women know that through connection they can experience all kinds of things which they don't have a right to ask just in and of themselves, like sex. If you are in a situation as a woman where you stand to lose everything, you bet you wait till you're miserable and lonely and hungry for intimacy. Let's watch what happens when you have the same consequences, and then we'll see if your motives are that fundamentally different.
So our last question before we're going to call our other partners to join us is...
Are you all in shock?
We're going to have you guys involved in a second. Here's the question, it's complicated. Imagine that you were to give...
Can I add one little thing? Because I realized that I say, you know, it's like, why would one deal with this aspect of relationship? Besides the fact that it is ubiquitous, is that because it has been so taboo, it has also been vastly shrouded in shame and in secrecy, and ultimately not allowing people to be helped. And part of this, for me, was to give a more compassionate and caring approach to this all-pervasive reality that most people suffer through on all fronts. It's for children to forgive their parents or to understand them. It's for friends to... It's actually really systemic. We always think of affairs as a story of two, but affairs are systemic and intergenerational.
Important point. So I'm still going to ask you my last question, which is a tough one.
The 15-year-old.
Yes.
Didn't I have a piece of paper here?
The question that I wanted, and we can talk about it together if you wanted to negotiate. So if I were a young girl right now, not even dated anyone yet, I'm 15 and I'm trying to start, what advice would you give me? What questions would you ask me? How would you tell me to do it right?
Here's the thing. There is nothing more special than that moment when your eyes lock on someone and the obsession begins to grow inside of you. And that person and your thoughts about that person starts to inhabit your every moment. And there is nothing like that moment that's going to become the source of all the suffering you're going to know. But I said this to my sons. It's unbeatable in both directions. Tell me something. When you meet somebody, what draws you to that person? What is it about that person? How do you feel about yourself in the presence of this guy? Or could be two men, two women, doesn't really matter. And tell me something. What would you say, since you've begun to know him, what would you say is, it's a her, right? You asked me about. What would you say is one vulnerability that you sense that he's struggling with? And do you think you can step in there and help him there? That's your power. And the next thing, if you're a girl, make sure to tell him that when these lips open, so do these. Don't go for the spot. Show him the long route. And show him that waiting is an entire aphrodisiac. Don't go direct to the point and don't, with this notion of don't beat around the bush. Actually, what's behind the bushes is phenomenal. And then, didn't even think about that, but I got it. But it works. In the beautiful metaphor. And then, here are 10 words that I would probably imagine go with the experience of love. It's one experience I highly hope you have, and you have many times, because there is nothing that will make you grow as much as that. But you will experience anxiety at the same time as you experience excitement. And you will experience confidence, and you will experience insecurity. And you will experience loneliness, and you will experience the transcendence of the loneliness. And you will worry at times, and at other times you will feel cocky. And sometimes you will feel angry and know that people who love each other fight. And that it is not nearly what they fight about that matters as much as how they make up. And know that there is no greater power than to be the first person to apologize.
Perfect. So I'm going to ask you one more question since we have like a second here. Perfect. We heard from Alex about dating applications, and I know that you recently started effectively coaching people on dating applications. You actually say, give me your phone and I'm going to help you out. What do you think is the problem of people? So first of all, we don't meet the way you said before. What would be an advice that you give some person who is dating on a dating application when they were starting the conversation?
I mean, what happened is that on a number of occasions recently, I've had to just say to a person, can I see what you're actually saying to know why you're not getting the response that you would like to get? If you're going to do relationship coaching, you want to understand the dynamic. What is the transaction? And what I find is highly articulate people who, when they start to write this was mostly on Tinder, are utterly inane. Inane. Who would want to respond to something like this? It's like 9-year-olds. Go read the poets a few hours and then come back with some inspiration. And then you'll understand how to actually make somebody get up at 11 o'clock when they were damn tired and not interested, because you will have charmed them with wit, with elegance, with an ability to just enter under their skin in the most imperceptible way and just grow in presence where who wants to go to sleep anymore? But none of this is happening. So there is no surprise that, things go up and they go down as fast as they went up, because there is nothing underneath to actually stoke it. So I think the conversation is thin. thin. I'm tired, you're cute. I'm sitting there. What are you doing? I'm watching TV. And you? I don't know. I'm not sure I want to go out. Do you really want to go out?
I think we milk nicely the plant examples from all angles of plants, from bushes to plants to flowers to poetry. I think let's call our other partners, Eli and Alex, to join us on the stage.